Hello everyone, my name is Randy Harrington, and tonight I put a video together uh, touching on a subject that I used in a previous video, but I only used a portion of this, and it was on the video where I talked about communication, patterns of behavior and communication. Well, I used some of the happenings in this incident uh, to show pattern, and communication that I thought was happening. But I had a gentleman reach out to me. Well, first, let's go over the title. The title, Can I Prove Bigfoot Used Creek to Approach? Well, I think in this video we will prove that at least on this occasion, indeed, approached by a Bigfoot while camping on a creek. And interesting enough that it's just more irony of a creature that wants to stay hidden but risks being seen. Crazy. So let's move on. All right. I received a message or a comment on one of my videos from a gentleman, a viewer, a subscriber named Randy. So, I had to answer him. Matter of fact, since he had such a cool first name, I had to give him a whole video to answer his question. But his question was at the end of another video, I had mentioned Lee Creek in northeast Oklahoma. Can you tell me what you know about the area? I'm from Van Buren, Arkansas, and I've read a few stories, but not many. So this video is for Randy, who lives in Van Buren. All right, here's a map, and you can see Natural Dam up there, and Van Buren down here. So this yellow line up through here, that is Lee Creek. So he's actually very close to Lee Creek. So he might be my contact guy to go there, and let's see if something can happen. So let's go to the next one. All right, so here's a little closer view. You can see the natural dam there circled on the right, and the arrow pointing over to where the road E923 comes off of 59. 59 is the highway, two-lane highway that runs between Stillwell and Salisal. So this road here is just a little bit north of, I think, Greasy. It's called Greasy, a little town called Greasy. I kid you not. Uh, so that's where you turn off to head down into the area. I think it's the Washita. I call it the Ozarks, but I'm sure it's the Washita, if I'm pronouncing that right. But anyways, so let's go in a little bit closer. Now you can barely see on the left upper corner over there where that's 59. And so you turn down on that road and you can see where the creek, Lee Creek, actually comes down from the north and crosses right there. And it just kind of meanders down along that road for miles and miles and miles. But that little circle that I drew down there, that is uh, that is where what I'm going to describe to you took place. So let's go in a little closer. All right, so here we are, and I'm showing a little line, a yellow line coming from the road where you cut through the woods there and come back into that spot on the creek. And I circled an area up there because there were a couple of years or a few years that I spent with another organization on that creek, doing a lot of camping, a lot of research, and that was one area that we could all get to uh, in relative ease and get vehicles into to camp. So that was right off. The turnoff was right after that bridge. So that's one area that we spent some time. And then This area down here is where my incident happened. So let's go to the next one. All right, so this shows you a much closer view, and you see this big flat rocky sandy area. you know so sometimes the creek is flooding, sometimes the creek is high, sometimes the creek is dry. So this here shows you that spot, and we were actually there as a group with multiple vehicles also at another time. So here I am going to pull back out on the map. So that little circle down there is where that spot on the creek. But if you go further east along that road, there's a place where this group that I was with does a lot of research, and there's actually campgrounds there. So it's public, I believe. Uh, or I've been down there before, and there were other people camping. So it's kind of a camping area there on Lee Creek. So you can use that as a reference. Uh, but we did a lot of research there, a lot of nights. I mean, there were nights I was there alone. There's nights I was there with one other guy, and there was lots of nights that we were there as a group. So lots of things have gone on in that area. Well, what I'm going to bring to your attention is one night we were there with a bunch of people and had an incident happen where there was a member of our group named Josh. He's from Arkansas, super nice guy. I mean, an avid hunter and very intelligent tracker, uh, very smart guy, excellent tracker. And I even spent, I think, on that event, I think he and I spent a whole night up in a tree stand that he walked up the tree. You know how you take a tree stand and you have to work it up the tree to get where you're going. So we put a tree stand up, and it was a two-seater, and we climbed up into it and stayed up there all night trying to watch down the creek with my thermal camera. So it was interesting, but he's a smart guy. Well, there were some things happening. People, maybe thought they were being followed, and so he was examining an area where, maybe I think there was a blowdown where there was a root ball or something off the trail, and so he went in behind there, found some knuckle prints. So here are those knuckle prints, and these are very interesting. That right picture was actually taken in the bed of my truck. So this is the size of the knuckles, and then that is the casted one to the right. So good size. They weren't small, and I do believe those are knuckles. I mean, there was no indication because there were other sign there too. I believe there was a second part of the palm or maybe a thumb print that came with that where something else touched where the knuckle was held down. So I mean, and you can see that the three knuckles were the prominent weight bearing knuckles, and to the left there you can see just the beginnings of the fourth knuckle, or that could be the tip of the thumb. I don't know, but clearly the three knuckles were the ones that were supporting, that were pushing down. So it's very interesting. Maybe it gives you some dynamics of the hand. Needless to say, it was on the same creek, not too far down creek from my incident. So that certainly going to add weight to what's going on there and what I'm going to present to you. All right, so let's go back half a mile back upstream to my location. I mean, it's not my location, but it's the location. Well, I'm just going to call it my location because it's my event that I'm presenting. So one night we were up there camping as a group. So there was probably 5 or 6 vehicles, and we were able to come in down through that wooded area and come back down into that flat spot on that creek and park our vehicles. So I just kind of drew a real quick diagram where you can see the vehicles lined up, and you can see the little arrow coming out of the woods there. That's where you would come out and drop down the bank onto that flat area of rocks. So you have all these vehicles lined up there, and we have a campfire and chairs camp chairs all set up, and we're there till way after dark. And we may have even had tents and stuff. So, because I think either we were sleeping there or sleeping down at the other spot, and we were just setting up here, having this event where we're just sitting and enjoying the campfire and letting night encroach upon us. Well, there was a gentleman there, and his name was Dave, and he went back to his vehicle because he needed to get something out of the hatchback. So you can see the arrow there going back, and he went around the corner. Now it was dark, so all he had on was a little headlamp. And this is the nicest guy you ever want to know. He was from Springfield, and just super nice guy, older, much older. And he goes around to get another lawn chair or something out of his hatchback, and we heard him say a curse word and get all excited and come darting back around and said he saw a Bigfoot in the reeds there. The reeds came right down to the edge of the creek there, very thick reeds, and he said he saw a little one in there. So over time he had another gentleman draw a picture of what he saw as he was getting into his hatchback, saw and heard a movement to his left, and looked over, and there it was trying to, I think it probably froze when he went over there, and then realized that it needed to go, so it was trying to extricate itself from the area slowly, but then it got seen. So here's a picture of what he described. And that's very interesting. Given the fact that the way the cars were lined up along the creek, and given the fact of what happened to me at the Chickasaw Park, and how the Bigfoots used the vehicle to come in behind and position themselves behind the back corner of the vehicle as something that would block them from the tent at the Chickasaw Park. Here seems like it may be the exact same scenario, where it's at the vehicle at the back corner using the vehicles as cover. Very interesting. And then it just so happened that that's exactly where Dave walked to get something out of the vehicle. So it worked out in our favor for him to have his first sighting. He talked about it over and over for many years. So it was good for him to experience that. Now, I posted a video at the very beginning of me doing videos of me riding my Polaris through those reeds, through that road that I drew coming through there and down into the creek. Now I'm going to play that video so that you can get an idea of the thickness of those reeds. Getting vehicles down there, you absolutely had to scrape trees and push over reeds to get down into the creek there. So this is just to let you know. a good, clear view of what the terrain is like there. Uh, I mean, it's very isolated, lots and lots of acreage of woods, on both sides of the creek. So these pictures here depict the day that I showed up there trip where I was by myself. So I'm getting all my stuff set up by another gentleman and his grandson. So they spent a couple hours with me, and then when they left, I finished setting up my campsite. So I'm showing you. So this flat area is where you saw my Polaris pull out of the river reeds, and you saw how thick and long stretching those river reeds are. So this is the flat area, and this is some pictures of the campsite. And the first two pictures just shows my truck where it's located, and the picture down below, which is very pixelated, you can see a canopy that I had set up over the hood of my truck. Well, that's where I had my tent set up, and I had a parabolic recorder. Now this is before I started using the hidden logs put these things into. So I had the parabolic and the recorder sitting behind the front tire underneath the truck, sitting in the darkness underneath the truck, and I had the cord running into my tent. So I think I had a cord running into my tent. At some point, I know I fall asleep, so I must have had the headset knocked off or wasn't listening or anyways. So, but I did have the recorder and the parabolic underneath the front tire passenger side and just laying on the ground, and I was in the tent. So here's the setup. I went ahead and filled in the water line with the black lines because the water level was a little bit higher. This is what I took off Google Earth, so it's a little drier than it was then. So it had little bit more water in the creek area. And there was my truck and the tent in front of the truck, little campfire, and then my Polaris was parked there. Then at 3 a.m., a visitor jars me from a deep sleep. This is what I hear at 3 a.m. Now, I heard that and I had been asleep. So this is what woke me up. I sat up in the dark, sitting in the floor of my tent, and I'm sitting there in the dark, and I'm thinking something is here. Here's what I was seeing in my mind. And let's hear it again. So shoot me. This is the vision I had in my head of what was there with what I heard. So I'm sitting up on my butt in the floor of my tent in complete darkness. I didn't turn on a light. I just sat there silently waiting to hear whatever else I could hear. So I'm sitting there listening, and I don't hear anything. I don't hear any movement. I don't hear anything. And I think I give it like 30 or 40 minutes. I'm sitting there in the darkness just waiting for something. I mean, when I just heard that, I was like, I mean, it was pretty scary. So I was like, there's no way. I mean, it's got to still be here if it made that much noise crossing the creek. So I'm just waiting for it to make its next move. And I'm sitting there in the darkness, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's at this point it's like 4 a.m. or maybe even a little later, but the sky lights up with lightning, and I don't even hear the thunder yet. I never heard thunder, never heard it. All of a sudden, just the sky lights up, and then a few seconds later I hear the thunder, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh crap, I did not know it was going to rain. This is not good. I mean, so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to wait and see it, because I did not want to get out of my tent. So I'm sitting there, and the sky lights up again, and more thunder, and then it lights up again, and it's starting to happen now to where I'm like, I'm at the edge of a storm. I mean, I'm at the edge of a storm, and this is not good. I'm in a creek bank or a creek bed, and so so I had to really snatch myself up by the bootstraps and grow a backbone, because my trailer that I brought in my Polaris on was way up there about 40 to 50 yards deep and around the corner in those reeds. That was as far back as I could have a spot to unhitch my trailer to unload my Polaris. And then I used the Polaris and truck to get all my camping stuff down to that camping spot. So here it is, 4 a.m. I had just had something cross the water, and I'm having to get out of the tent, and the sky is lighting up with lightning, and I realized that I need to be out of here before the rain even starts. That's how treacherous things were looking. So I had my headlamp on. I was having to go up through the reeds. First, I took my Polaris and I rode it up. No, that's not what I did. I I immediately started packing everything up and just, I mean, I wasn't even folding stuff. I was just chunking it into the back of my truck. Wrapped the tent up, threw it in the back of my truck, in the back seat of my truck. I mean, I was filling the thing up without any care to how I was packing things. I just knew I had to get out there. So at that moment, I'm sitting there with my truck and my Polaris, and I'm like, I've got to I've got to walk through those reeds. So I took my truck up there first and went back in there, and I left my headlights on in the darkness of those reeds, and I got my trailer hooked up. And then after that, the scary thing was I had to walk from that spot with my headlamp down the river reeds. And you saw the video of me going down those river reeds with that Polaris. I was having to walk that and break down onto that creek to get to the Polaris to get it back up and get it on the trailer. But I did all that, and I got to tell you, I went through 9 lives going through that process of walking through those river reeds after hearing what I heard while I was in the creek and expecting it to be there somewhere, because I never heard it leave. I was like, it's here somewhere and it's watching me. So I had to get my Polaris, and it's starting to sprinkle, and and I mean, there's a couple of mud bogs that I had to get through to get in through that stretch of woods to get down there. And I'm just like, you do not want to be down here in the rain. So I get the thing loaded up, and I get down through there, and I'm tearing off down through that muddy, ruddy thing, and then it starts. I mean, it starts pouring. I mean, I got into that at the brink of the right moment, where I had just hit the paved road out there on that E923 road, when it was started raining cats and dogs. And I went all the way into Stillwell, and I parked in the Walmart parking lot, and I slept in the front seat of my truck, and it was torrential rains for hours. Yeah, it was unbelievable. It, I got really lucky. But the thing is, what happened when I heard that thing cross the creek, and I didn't know this until I get home, start unloading the audio into Audacity, and start discovering when I heard this creek crosser and all these other things, that that was the end of a happening, of something that happened. When I woke up, I heard that and I assumed it was the beginning of something. That's why I had all those thoughts in my head that it was still there, and all of that. But the fact is, that was the end of what it had done. It had already been there for quite a while, doing some things, and that was him leaving. So that's what we're going to cover. You can still see the layout of my vehicle, the tent, and then the Polaris. So let's go ahead and hear again. Oh. That was a rock hitting a rack. Now, I don't know if it was a rack on my Polaris because it has racks on the back of it, or I don't know if it was the ladder racks on my truck. So it was one or the other. Something threw a singular rock, and you could hear it hitting the rack and then dropping down onto the ground. I mean, so you can actually rewind the video and listen to it again if you need to. But I mean, it is what it sounds like, and you've got to know that if you look at the video of my Polaris pulling out there on those rocks, and me showing you this diagram, there is no trees over the top of the vehicles in this location, so we can rule out stuff falling out of a tree. And it sounded like a rock because of when it hit the ground and you hear it bounce amongst the other rocks, it sounds like a rock. So something hit the ladder rack on the truck and bounced on the ground. All right. After that, there were actually some more audio that I did not save uh, that had rocks throw, but they weren't significant. They were just little dinks and dunks. Uh, but these are the only pertinent ones that I saved. And so this is going to be a coyote howl. So you heard the rock throw between the two coyote howls. Uh, I hope I didn't make a mistake by putting two audios on the same slide. But the next one, if I can make it, it shows a slow approach through the water, and you can hear that it has rocks in its hands. What it's doing is it's slowly walking through the water. You can hear it displacing water, but you're also going to hear some clacks, which, because of the audio that I'm going to show after this, where it's actually clacking rocks, you can hear the moment when it's moving, trying to move stealthily through the water, and you're going to hear clacks where it's got rocks in his hands. Maybe it has more than one rock in one hand and they're clacking together, but he's moving and you can hear rocks clack. Okay, so there we have that part. Now, this is the rock clacks where you can hear it clacking rocks together with its hands. Now, the previous audio showed that it was moving, and you hear a clack, like maybe it had rocks in its hand, and so you heard that aspect of it. Now it's actually using the rocks in its hands to clack together, and then it throws one, and it hits the stack of wood. And you can see right there on the diagram that I drew, like right there in front of my tent was my stack of wood. So you can clearly hear that when it's done clacking the rocks together and it throws one, that this is the first and only time that it hits wood. And that's the only wood that was right there by the microphone. So I'm assuming that that's what the wood that was that was hit. All right, so I can't know which direction he was in the water. I don't think it was in the picture there. You can see to the right where it opens up, the creek opens up into a big waterway, almost the size of a pond. I don't think it came in that way because gets really deep around that bend. So I'm thinking it came up here on the left side, which was a more narrower stretch, and it had the channel. It had the long flat. It had flat, shallow stuff, and then a channel, which was anywhere from 4 to 6 feet deep. So it sounds like it crossed very briefly. It didn't cross a whole lot of water. It just went through that deep part of the channel and went up the other side. It's just my guess. I don't know. So it is quite interesting. So let's go ahead and go into the next one. So we got 3 or 4 components of these audios and the experiences. Now, keep in mind all of the other incidents. Dave's sighting behind his hatchback, the knuckle prints we got further down the creek. So we got some components here like a stealthy approach through the water, trying to be quiet but yet approach, holding and carrying rocks as it approached. So it had the ammo in its hand, even though he's walking on rocks, so it would be easy to just reach down and pick up a rock. But for some reason, it sounded like he already had rocks in his hands as he was moving. So that's a component we might want to stick into our toolbox of knowledge that indeed they may approach already holding on to their ammunition that they know they're going to throw. But you also see the apparent frustration at the lack of reaction from his antics. And you can tell that it's frustrated by the way he leaves. He was completely not interested in hiding his departure, but his approach was very stealthy. So that's interesting. It's interesting that at some point he did not care if he was stealthy or not. Is it because he convinced himself that nobody was in the tent? Maybe. If he knew I was in the tent and he stayed stealthy coming up, he may have not cared about being stealthy and leaving because he knew he wouldn't be here after somebody heard it. You can weigh the differences of why you think that he responded the way he did, but it looked like a buildup of frustration, and the way he stomped through the water as he left is quite telling. I really enjoy it. So let's just listen to him leaving one more time. So thank you. Please share and subscribe, like and comment, and all that other bull.